Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Father.
Today is a day of optimism. Today is a day of dreaming. And most important of all, today is a day of hope. I'll put it bluntly at the start. Optimism is not a virtue. You're being optimistic is not the same as having hope. To be optimistic is what psychologists call a personality trait. So you have some people are more optimistic than others. Some, like me, could be a little more pessimistic on occasion. But there are those who are endowed naturally with the attitude of goodness, for example. But being good is not the same as having the virtue of charity. And being optimistic is not the same as having the virtue of hope. I talk about hope because all three readings today refer to it. The first reading from the prophet Ezekiel. You know that Ezekiel is famous for the vision of the dry bones. And Ezekiel comes down in biblical history as the prophet who talked about bringing life back and using as material the dry, dead bones long since buried. It is a vision that you will never forget. The vision of Ezekiel of the dry bones getting on fresh sinews and new life. And today he talks about another aspect of this hope that we are referring to. An anonymous figure taking a little shoot from the top of the cedar tree. Alam niyo po yung cedro ay napakahalagang kahoy, punong kahoy sa lumang tipan at sa bagong tipan. So the Cedars of Lebanon, you read that in the Psalms, in the book of Psalms. Cedars are a very highly prized wood coming from that area in biblical lands. And today the vision of Ezekiel talks about somebody plucking a shoot from the topmost portion of a tall cedar tree and transplanting it again to a high mountain, that place promised by the Lord. For his part, St. Paul in the second reading talks about being courageous. He talks about being courageous despite the fact that he is not yet with the Lord. And he expresses some kind of a desire to die in order to be with the Lord. No, he was not suicidal. He was pouring out his heart of longing to be reunited with the risen Lord. But then he takes back his word and says, but for the meantime, I need to do what I must. I need to preach the gospel. I need to plant the seed and to water the seed planted by the Lord. And he is referring to the kingdom of God. Now I'll take you straight to the gospel. The first paragraph is a very, very telling piece of what this hope is like. This is how it is with the kingdom of God. It is as if a man were to scatter seed and would sleep and rise night and day. And through it all, the seed would sprout and grow. He knows not how. My dear brothers and sisters, if this is not hope for you, then I don't know how you will define hope. Hope is not you being hopeful. It's about you having the virtue of hope. And that virtue of hope, first of all, is a gift. It is one of the three so-called theological virtues. And they are called theological because one, they came from God directly. infused into our souls when we were baptized. During the day of our baptism, we were given sanctifying grace and these 3 theological virtues. These virtues are gifts from God, direct, not mediated, directly from God. And the second reason why they are called theological virtues is because all 3 lead directly back to the giver. You have faith in God. You have faith and hope in the God who gives life and sustains life. And you have love on account of God, because of God, for God, and in God, and for God's sake. And you love others because you love God as you love yourself. My dear brothers and sisters, today cannot be let go of unless you hold on to the great gift that is hope. In the second reading, Paul is not, you cannot say that Paul has confidence or is confident. It was not about being confident. It's about having courage. It's about having hope. And it's about being committed to go on planting the seeds of hope wherever he goes. And therefore, the second part of the gospel tells us what it is like. To what shall we compare the kingdom of God? What parable can we use for it? And he talks about little things, insignificant things, mustard seed. Those of you who have been to Israel would know, they gave you at some point examples of those mustard seed. And probably you all have seen it in Google Images, how tiny the mustard seed is, how it can be blown easily by a gentle whiff of wind, how insignificant looking. But this is how the kingdom of God grows, begins and grows. Many years ago, when Leah Salonga was just a young girl, she was catapulted to fame even as a child when she sang the version of Tomorrow. And I bet some of you here who are here right now would remember that. It was mid-70s or late 70s, I don't remember now, probably 1979. And she sang that famous song of that musical, Tomorrow. The sun will come out tomorrow. And if I face a day that is lonely and gray, all I have to do is stick my chin out, she says, grin, and say, the sun will come out tomorrow. Nice as the words are, they are an expression of human optimism. Yes, we dream of the sun coming out once more tomorrow, like today is a beautiful morning. I was doing my first 2 rosaries before the day broke as I walked the dog. And as the sun was threatening to burst forth from the eastern horizon, I knew in my heart that it was gonna be a beautiful morning. But I was not necessarily hopeful. I was being optimistic. And optimism is not a Christian virtue. You were born into it. Some people are naturally optimistic and some are naturally pessimistic. But we were gifted with something greater than optimism. And that gift is that which I would like you all to hold on to right now. Hold on to hope, because hope doesn't mean the sun will come out tomorrow. Hope doesn't mean only that there will be a beautiful day tomorrow once again. Hope means that the kingdom of God is right here, right now, in your heart, in your lips, in your mind, in your personhood. And where you go around preaching in humility, in lowliness, the good news of the kingdom, then you are one with God in His dream. And therefore today I ask you to dream with God. dream for God. Dream in God's name. And how do you dream? You have to wake up and make it a reality, or else it's just a nightmare. When you dream and wake up and help make it as a reality, then you are an apostle. Like Paul, who said, "How I want now to go with the Lord and die earlier than I expected, because the object of my hope is union with God forever in the next." But that hope is something you live and do. And therefore, Paul caught himself, taught better, and became all things to all men, in the hope of saving at least some of them. And he did wonderfully well. And when at the end of his life, towards the end of his life, he had every right to say, because he was a hopeful, faithful, and loving man, "I have run the race. I have fought the good fight. I have kept the faith." He was a man of hope, not just of optimism.